Hello, good day. I'm Archie Soriano. I'm about to present to you our study. If you're wondering, I am the only one presenting our study. It is because my partner, Mr. Damson Gopana, is not from Butuan, and that is why he cannot make it here due to the coronavirus outbreak. So, speaking of coronavirus outbreak, it is related to our topic, which we choose the Vietnam and Philippines as our main variables in our comparative. So, our study is titled with Comparing the Approach of Vietnam, President Nguyen Phu Trong, and Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte protecting its country against the continuous spreading of COVID-19. So, before I start with my discussion, I will first put a question. What would the state do if this COVID-19 will hit them? How does the government implement its policy to protect its citizens and to prevent this coronavirus outbreak? So let's find out. So in my presentation, I will be discussing to you the flow of my presentation. So first we go on to the introduction. Second is the theoretical framework. Third, the methodology. And fourth, the analysis. Fifth, the conclusions. And lastly, the recommendations. So, we will start our discussion. So, we go on to the introduction. So, last December 31, 2019, a disease called novel coronavirus and now COVID-19 discovered in the city of Wuhan, province of Hubei, country China. The disease shakes the world that the World Health Organization designated COVID-19 a public health emergency of international concern. The country China, of where the disease was believed originated, many of its citizens traveled to any part of the world just to get away of its country, for not to be infected. Because of these actions of Chinese citizens, every states became decisive as what to do to those Chinese who came in their respective country. So, as you can see, the map, the purpose of this map is to show that the country China, Vietnam, and Philippines are near with each other. So, in this study, as country Vietnam and Philippines, both countries that are near to China, the researchers aims to compare the approach, strategy, and the leadership of Vietnam President Nguyen Phuc and Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte in facing the battle against COVID-19. So we now move to the theoretical framework of our study. The study is based on Immanuel Kant's theory of civil society about public reason, or a critical thinker. In Kant's theory, it was pointed out that every individual must be liberated to any institution, organization that force to educate and implement its ideology without allowing the member or individual to question about even in some clarifications. These institutions or organization denies the capability of individual as a rational being. Nowadays, people seems only aware of how many contracted with the novel coronavirus in every country. Everyday numbers of supplemented positive of the disease and total numbers of deaths because of the disease. With this pandemic problem, government has the big role in the country to control the spread of the virus. Leaders became decisive to make decisions in its country, and almost all countries are locked down to make people to have community home quarantine. Researchers used Immanuel Kant's theory of civil society to observe Vietnam and Philippines of how they handle its country against the pandemic novel coronavirus. Second, for the people, the audience of the study may see other system of government against the continuous spread of the disease. So in our methodology, the researcher choose the cross-national comparison methods. According to Joseph W. Welder, cross-national methodology is an approach to knowing social reality through examination similarities and differences between data gathered from more than one nation. So it is said there more than one nation. So we choose Vietnam and Philippines. It is aligned with the definition. Which in our research we compare and analyze the similarities and differences between Vietnam and Philippines in fighting against the coronavirus spreading across the globe with the targeted timetable. So now we go to the analysis or the political structure of Vietnam and Philippines. So we first go to the Vietnam. So Vietnam is a socialist country under the leadership of the Vietnam Communist Party. It holds a National Congress Assembly every 5 years to outline the country's overall direction and future course, as well as to formalize policy. The Philippines, it is a republic with a presidential form of government wherein power is equally divided among its three branches, executive, legislative, and judicial. In this section, we can see that the differences of their political structure. So, in their National Assembly, in Vietnam, in their National Assembly, it decides the fundamental domestic and foreign policies, the socio-economic tasks, national defense and security issues, the major principles governing the state, machinery, the social relations and activities, and citizens. In the Philippines, one basic corollary in a presidential system of government is the principle of separation of powers, wherein legislation belongs to Congress, execution to the executive, and settlement of the legal controversies to the judiciary. So this is the timeline of the start of the novel coronavirus in their respective countries. So as you can see, Vietnam here is more on in the past few weeks, they have more cases cases compared to the Philippines. So in the following days, February 6, 49-year-old is the number 11 case of the Vietnam, and following the days February up to the February 13, they have the Vietnam now have 16 cases of the infected patients of the coronavirus. When the 6th case was confirmed on March 7. The Department of Health confirmed that the 5th case was the first local transmission in the country. In March 8, 4 new cases were confirmed. The 10th case is Filipino citizen with no travel history outside of the country. And in March 9, 10 new cases were initially confirmed on March 9, totaling 20 cases. So, the number of cases in Vietnam and Philippines are really close enough that it is the compatible in comparison in the actions of the government. So we now move to the preventive measures of government response in the disease. So in Vietnam, on January 24, the Civil Aviation Administration of Vietnam ordered the cancellation of all flights from and to Wuhan. Vietnamese Ministry of Education and Training suspended all school activities across the country until the end of March as part of the quarantine measures against the spreading of virus, and later extended till the middle of April until further notice. While in the Philippines, travel restrictions on January 31, a travel ban on all Chinese nationals from Hubei and other affected areas in China was imposed. On February 2, a ban was introduced on all foreign travelers who have been to China, Hong Kong, and Macau in the past 14 days. So, Vietnam, from 14 days quarantine to restriction of outdoor activities. The Vietnam People's Armed Forces also takes part on patrolling and controlling measures. While in the Philippines, nationwide measures, President Duterte issued Proclamation Number 922 on March 9, formality declaring a public health emergency, and lockdowns, closing of private firms, religious sectors, no public masses in all parishes and churches. So now we go on to the conclusion and recommendation of our study. In our conclusion, as the world faces this evolving situation, different states and nations has different style and policies in dealing with the coronavirus. Thus, in our study, we choose Vietnam and the Philippines as our main variables in comparing in relevance to the topic we are presenting. Clearly, the Vietnamese government has outperformed the Philippine government in dealing the problem, which put us in mind that it could be the government system and the geographical location of the two made marks on differences. Where Vietnam are more on engaging the problem and mostly prepared in such a situation like this. Unlike the Philippines, where it is very clear that the government is not ready in the situation occurring. However, seeing the differences in fighting the coronavirus may somehow put us an idea that Vietnam tops the Philippines, and we can never deny the fact that these two nations still try their best to end the problem sooner. Still, the purpose of our study is to give comparative analysis between these two nations and able to identify the differences and similarities. These countries may have different style and policies, but the question still remains, when does this pandemic going to end? No timetable is clear in this evolving situation. So now we go on to the last part of our study, which is the recommendation. Our recommendation is that the Philippine government should look on what is lacking in the technicalities in terms of medical and health support. Examples of these are test kits, tools and facilities to accommodate the said infected patients. Both states should have an immediate response to prevent the virus as early as possible and does not hesitate to impose policies that is beneficial to everybody's welfare and health. That is the overall presentation of our study. Thank you and God bless.